Hello, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Simon.
And welcome to PolyWaffle.
You know, Hannah, I'm very excited for this week's episode. It's going to be another fantastic show. And are you pumped as I am?
I would actually say I'm a little bit more excited than you are, Simon. We have some awesome stories and performances for today.
It sounds pretty lit. So what do we have first?
Well, up first we have a day in the life of a producer/rapper called Noose. And don't forget to check them out on Instagram at Bad Noose.
Little prick food, tune in, hyper blue, crack up a tune. I need to bury more Drew. A jewel on the wild west gate, stars draw to high noon. Off on a yard face, the eternal grey. Wake up with.
My name is Rod. I go by Noose and I produce, mix, master, do sound engineering, and I rap. I've been doing it for about 6 years. I've been writing on and off when I was earlier. I did a different type of music when I first started. I started really writing like
just a little bit
heavier, like alternative type music, metal, all that sort of stuff. I've been producing for 3 years. I've been writing raps for like maybe just a bit less than 6 years. Most of my inspirations don't actually come from rap music at all. A lot of my inspirations come from like old books, like Call of Cthulhu, old weird cosmic horror stories and stuff like that. And video games, a lot of COD Zombies, Bioshock, stuff like that, Dead Space. Pop culture as well, like horror movies, Evil Dead, stuff like that. It's usually I just sort of like drag it all in, I sort of like congregate it and I put it all into the mix. I use FL Studio for producing and Ableton as well. I use a lot of plugins bought off the internet. I use Omnisphere, Silent, Nexus, a lot of compression plugins for audio engineering, but I record into Reaper, which is a free program and it's really good when coupled with the right hardware. Great program, produces real top quality songs, and I've just started doing my first proper recordings at home. I am yet to record a full-size EP, but I'm working on one with my friend Mogwai, MOG.Y, and we've recorded a couple of solo tracks, but the whole process to put together a full song, it can take me anywhere from 2 days to 2 months. What advice can I give? I can give the advice, be yourself, don't be fake. Talk about things you're comfortable talking about, but also delve into uncomfortable territory. I've done that and people have said that that song's arguably my best. I disagree, but people tend to think so. Like I said, have a positive image for yourself. Be nice. Be nice, but be aggressive. Sort of, you know, be willing to take over. Be willing to be aware that you have competition and be aware that you want to stay relevant. You don't want to like drop down. My overall advice is be nice, make friends, because you won't get anywhere without any connections. And practice. Lots of practice. That's it.
I guess that was lit.
Indeed. I've always wanted to know how people go about producing their own music.
It sounds like he does do a lot of practice, however.
Do you know what else takes a lot of practice, Simon?
I don't, Hannah. Tell me.
Drawing patterns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We will see as Nick shows us different ways to draw patterns.
Hi, I'm Nick. I like to draw patterns and I'm going to show you some techniques that I like to use. So all you need to draw is a piece of paper, a couple of pens, and for this particular exercise I'm going to be using a 20-cent piece. To start, I'm going to trace some 20-cent pieces, and the first one is cross-hatching. It's where you draw a series of parallel lines and then you intersect them to create a nice pattern. So you can use as many sets of parallel lines as you like. So in this situation here, this is 3 sets of lines, one going horizontal and 2 sets of diagonal lines. To do some variations, you can do it as simply as doing 1 set of parallel lines. And I'll just strengthen this line here down the middle. And then for the middle, I might do as many as you can fit. So the next technique I'm going to show you is how to do closely knitted circles. So for this, I like to do all one size generally, and you can variate the size to create a different effect. I also like to add a little bit extra texture to each of the circles by dotting them, and this will give it just that extra level of complexity. For the last pattern, we'll call it cornering, and basically each time I'm going to go to a point and we'll keep building this corner out across the page.
Wow, it looks like he practices a lot.
Well, you know what they say, Hannah? Practice does make perfect.
Very true, Simon. There are a lot of skills you can work on, and I know one that needs a lot of direction.
And which one might that be?
Being a director.
Thank God it's not acting.
I wrote the series with a friend of mine, Mitchell Casey, and I directed it with him and a girl called Hannah, and we directed 2 episodes each. So Junk Mail is basically about a musician who was quite unsuccessful in his youth, and so he'd given it up, and then later on some people stole his music, and then he got upset about it, and now he has to do something about it. Hardest part would have been figuring out the timeline, so what actually happens from start to finish, and keeping that all linear. And there were things like, we had a lawyer in the show, so we had to figure out, you know, because I don't know anything about law, and let alone copyright law. So I had to figure that out, which isn't too difficult, but it's just these little things that you have to watch out for. So yeah, I think probably the hardest thing about directing it, because it was kind of my first go at doing it, I found it hard to sort of tell the actors what I wanted. So there'd be things like, you know, they didn't show enough enthusiasm, or they wouldn't say a line right, and they've done it like 10 times already, and you don't want to tell them that you want to do it again, but sometimes you just have to, you know.
I'll tell you what I'll do for you. Okay? I'll research everything there is about these guys, okay? Their management, their label, what they have for breakfast before we go for it.
But it feels fantastic. It's been about a year and a half, I think, since we came up with the idea. So yeah, it's been slow, but it feels fantastic to finally have it done, yeah.
Do you know what, Hannah? I definitely think that being a director isn't easy.
Oh, absolutely, no doubt.
Once again, we'll see how Jules Taylor finds Buddha in part 3, and we'll also dive into the world of art therapy.
Stay tuned.
And welcome back.
I'm having an extremely good time.
Clearly. And returning to us next is Jules Taylor in part 3 of Finding Buddha.
When I'm working with textiles, I always play music, or I always play Tibetan chants. So there's something that they all go together. There's something about story. There's something about making meaning of now from the threads of the past. As a child, my mother used to, in later years, my mother used to say to me that I was a horror to dress, because she would, even from the age of about 2, she would come towards me with a piece of my clothing, and I would be staring at it, and she would come close, and then I'd go like this, and if it was synthetic, I'd go like that. And even at 2, I knew something was synthetic. So where did that come from? Are they left over from a previous life? As a Buddhist, of course I believe in reincarnation, but I have no idea. Was I a merchant in a previous life of, silk and cotton and, I don't know, wool and hemp, and I have no idea. But somehow that has been transmitted into this life. But what I do know is that today when I work with textiles, particularly old textiles, of which my great love is old tapestries and abusons and embroidery fragments from the 1700s and 1800s. I feel their history, I feel they're telling a tale, they're telling a story, and that there's a lineage there, that there's a lineage in they're handmade, somebody has either loomed them, there's a history of the village that they were made in, there are stories of the people that the transmission of that village's history is in the hands of the people who have loomed the fibres, and I can feel that. I feel that transmission in, fabric tells stories. I don't regret a moment of it. It's been wild and crazy and big, deep, sad, mad, but incredible.
And that concludes our 3-part journey with Jules, and what a fantastic transformation.
I guess that art does play a massive role in her life. It shows that as time goes on, we can still recreate ourselves and express who we are.
Hey Simon, do you know anything about art therapy?
I've heard of it, but I can't say I know much about it.
Well, my good friend, luckily for you, the next feature is all about it. So let's sit back and see what we can learn.
Hi, my name is Karen Knight, and everyone knows me as Kez, and I'm an art therapist. So what is art therapy? It's a two-handed process. On one hand, it's about that creative expression, which I love this cartoon. I think that shows it beautifully. This guy here, he's got a lot of things happening in his head, but when he can get that out on paper without focusing on an art outcome, it doesn't need to be aesthetically pleasing. As you can see, it's just a lot of scribble. But once he can get that out, he returns to himself again with a big sigh of relief. So that's on one hand what art therapy can do for you. But on the other hand, we're creating from a different part of our brain. So when we use verbal language, when the written word, the spoken word, it's using that analytical left brain hemisphere. And quite often we can mask things, like if someone says, "Hi, how are you today?" And quite often we immediately say, "Yeah, I'm great," but you may not necessarily be feeling great, but we mask things. Whereas the art is our truth serum, it doesn't lie. And in my training, I am aware of what certain things can mean, but my role is to hold the energetic space for people and for them to come up with their own meaning around the process. So it's very much led by the client, and it's very much about empowering the client to come up with their own insight. If I was to say, "Oh, that looks like that's going on for you at the moment," they would be resistant to that, as I know I would be if someone told me. It's about coming up with your own insight and your own archetypes and symbols and meaning as well. It's very profound. It never ceases to amaze me how profound it is. For example, this is one that I've done for myself. I wasn't too sure on where I wanted to take this year as part of my personal and professional development. What I saw in it was like a butterfly. So there's two wings here and the body, and there was all this stuff happening down here, but it was the funneling in of things. So for me, it reminded me about all the life experience, professional, personal development that I've done funneling that in so it's quite concentrated here, but then it's expanding out again. So for me, it reminded me of the supervision work that I do now, the workshops that I run for other counsellors and therapists to help them to get on track with their business, their practice, where they want to take that. So it was about supporting people through that. And the butterfly for me represents transformation. So it was transforming this into this. So that's what I got out of this artwork. So it's not aesthetically pleasing. It's not something that you necessarily want to frame and put on the wall. It's not about that. It's about the process. That's what art therapy is. Art therapy did originate in the early 1900s through Carl Jung. A lot of his work is incorporated in art therapy. Carl Jung broke away from Sigmund Freud, and he used a lot of artwork with his clients, especially in mandalas. So part of his Red Book, there was a whole series of artwork that he led his clients through, helped them process their emotions and what they were going through to gain insight and the powerful aha moments that the artwork brings. And of course there's a lot of other people like Stan Groff. He's a transpersonal art therapist, and he formed his ideas in the 1960s, so it's been going for a long time. But it's a very deep, profound process that I really enjoy for myself. It's certainly changed my life, and it's beautiful to share that with other people to help them change their lives.
So Simon, what did you learn from that?
I guess I learned that art is not just fun, but can also help you heal as well.
It's very, very true. After the break, we talk to an amateur clothing designer about his favourite place that inspires him to make street apparel.
Welcome back to the last section of our episode of PolyWaffle. I hope everybody has learned something new today.
It's been lit.
Oh my God, Hannah, you've done it again. You've outdone yourself. So let's get into it. Designer Jessie is going to explain the process of having an idea and turning it into a product that you can wear.
My name's Jessie. My producer DJ name is Jessie Jamal. I've been living in Melbourne for about 13 years now, kind of on and off. I lived in Canada for a bit and I've gone back to New Zealand a few times. I'm kind of an amateur clothing designer. I design things and make garments. It's a good match. My brand is Jumble Clothing Co. And it's basically a melting pot of ideas and inspirations just from everything in life, from my youth, music, books, magazines. I get inspired by a lot of different places, you know. It could even just be going for a walk down the Mary Creek. The only time I really have to get into some designs or do some music or something is at night. Throughout the day I'm just, you know, it might be listening to the radio or it might be seeing some design in public, but even record digging. Musicians and artists choose the dopest fonts. My creative space is listen to music, just vibe out and catch a vibe and get onto something. Yeah, like making beats and producing music definitely like is incorporated with some of the designs I do. A big inspiration from the designs comes from music because, you know, that's what I love and what I'm all about.
My God, that was actually fascinating.
I know, right? We could go on and on about how cool today's show has been. But unfortunately, our time is up.
And that's a real shame because I'll be looking forward to next episode.
But before we go, we have a 5-piece original band from Melbourne called Good Morning Chaos, playing a funky new tune called Gypsy Hip Hop.
And that sounds pretty damn great if you ask me. So thanks for watching PolyWaffle and we'll see you guys next time.
dodges